Welcome and happy New Year and welcome to 2021 for everybody. We've had an amazing, interesting 12 months. Actually, last year's the real estate market, as you know, was unique. We're all having to deal with COVID and the pandemic across our country, and certainly that's impacted our region. I will say this, there is good news in the real estate market. IVAR just completed its annual housing report, and those numbers were pulled yesterday. We are issuing the report today. It'll be sent out to the membership. It's already on our IVAR's website. And for the most part, it was a robust year. We had to recover from a very down March, April, May, and June. But the last 6 months of the year were extremely strong, and the market was fantastic, as most of you well know. Inventory's still tight, but aside from that, we're doing very well. So hang in there. It's going to be a good 2021 by all accounts, and we're excited to be here. So with that, I will introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Aaron Norris. Most of you may know Aaron and his father, Bruce Norris, from the Norris Group. However, about sometime last year, Aaron took a new position. He's working with Property Radar. He is the Vice President of Market Insights. He is a licensed broker and mortgage broker in California and in Florida. And Aaron is also a proud realtor member of IVAR. He is an active real estate investor, an industry expert in real estate market trends, and a self-described data geek. Much of his work can be found on Forbes.com, Think Realty Magazine, BiggerPockets.com, where technology, trends, and real estate all come together. So with that, I will turn over our program to Mr. Aaron Norris. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning. Thank you for what an honor to get to kick off the year again. It's always fun. And I have a lot to cover per usual, probably a little bit more than I should, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Can you see my screen okay?
Very good.
All right. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Looks great.
Awesome. All right, let's do this. Well, Happy New Year all. What an exciting time to be in real estate. For those of you who don't know me from Adam, I grew up in Riverside, started flipping houses with my dad at the age of 5 for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I went to New York City, spent my 20s in New York City as a professional artist based out of the city. I moved back to California in 2004, and in 2005 joined the Norris Group. So I've been in the real estate investor hard money space with my pops, Bruce Norris, for a long time. We've raised over $2 million for local charity with events like I Survive Real Estate, which IVAR has always been a really great partner with on. And then that's where I met Sean O'Toole. I've been a longtime user of Property Radar, and I've just fallen in love with the data that allows us in the industry to garner for our industry and better insights and do a better job marketing to the people we need to talk to. So today, a little ambitious, but I'm going to try to cover some local marketing trends for 2021. We're going to cover a lot about off-market real estate. There's a large amount of transactions that are happening behind the scenes that you might not even know about, and how you might get in the way of some of that at the local level. And then we're going to cover specific examples of how to use different kinds of data. Part of my job as Property Radar goes national. That's why I was brought on, as I work with media as well as teach nationwide to help our industry get a little bit more savvy about dreaming with data. And I get asked a lot, what's the perfect list? What about foreclosures? What's the secret where I don't have to work very hard? Unfortunately, I don't have all those for you, but thanks to public records, there are no secrets. What we're going to be talking a lot more about today is specific to you. I'm using public records, which are technically free. You could go to the county recorders. You've got the assessor's data. I am using Property Radar, pulling the data today to make it a little easier for myself. But let's get into marketing for 2021. Why do I even talk about marketing? Well, if you don't have a consistent source of leads, obviously you're not in business. But when you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. And it's getting more tricky because we have a lot more competition these days. So big business is trying to crush small business, and they're making it, doing that by driving up our marketing costs and decreasing our margins across the industry. Uh-oh, I'm getting an echo. One of the competition points that you have specifically as a realtor these days in the Inland Empire for the last couple of years has been iBuyers. Most of them have been operating in the Inland Empire since 2017. So how do we win? As the local professional, what do we need to do? Well, we need to do things that don't scale. If you're not familiar with the word scale, it just means volume. Wall Street is after massive amounts of deals because oftentimes that's the only way that what they're doing actually works. And if, as Main Street, if we can focus on right-bound marketing, that's where we're going to thrive. It's about reaching the right audience with the right message in the right channel at the right time, because that does not scale. Wall Street does not do that. And let me back up a little bit and show you what that means. So when we talk about outbound low target marketing, that's where, it's TV, newspapers, every drawer, direct mail, billboards. It may be broad reach, very low cost per impression, but it doesn't mean it converts. It's untargeted, and it can be very expensive depending on where you decide to deploy this method. Now, when we go to inbound marketing, low targeting, everyone gets very excited because there's it's free. All I have to do is start a YouTube channel. It's working for me 24/7 and I'm amazing. Well, having been in the content space for over 15 years, I promise you it's not free. It takes a lot of time and effort. It's often very ineffective. There's such a low barrier to entry. And here's what I mean. Here's the sea of free. On YouTube, 500 hours get uploaded every minute. 147,000 photos every minute in Facebook, and 360,000 tweets. If you can look in the mirror and honestly point to, well, good for you. If you can see exactly how many leads are coming from your social media, you're winning at life.
Overnight.
Here's the other thing. We've got a lot of noise. This is a chart that I've been following for the last 6 years. Over the last
Okay, and I'll just do this and come back.
Those ready?
Yes.
Please mute yourself, folks.
Aaron, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah, hold on.
There you go. Sorry about that. So, sorry. What I was saying is usage has gone up 3 hours. And a lot of that is because we're doing things like double screening. We're looking at multiple screens. We're distracted by multiple screens at the same time. It makes marketing very difficult. So let's go to inbound high targeted marketing. This is fun. It's effective. It's highly targeted. The problem is it's expensive. And this is where the competition actually puts themselves in between you and the customer. So agents, I don't need to tell you about this. You've got Zillow, agent leads. I always love bringing up their name in front of you because you sort of cringe and roll your eyes, and it's a love-hate relationship. I get it, but it's getting very expensive. But because iBuyers are in our neck of the woods, here's what you may not know. This is an email I got from one of my friends up in Sacramento, Laurel. She's a redeveloper and flipper up there. She does great work. She says her pay-per-click in Sacramento went from $10 to $30 per click when Opendoor relaunched after a brief pause during COVID. But the most interesting part is her brand name keywords over tripled in cost. If you're not familiar with this tactics, it's happened to the Norris Group as well. This is a screenshot that one of our customers sent us about hard money. One of our Wall Street competitors, Lending Home, was actually using the Norris Group name in their paid ads on Google. And because I knew them, I emailed them and said, hey, you probably hired this marketing company. You may not know that they're doing this, but it's against Google's rules and it's not cool. This was the email I got back from John. Yes, we are targeting all searches related to hard money lending. So yes, I have to pay more money for the Norris Group on paid ads because the competitors has identified me as a major competitor in the market. I would do a little bit of homework if I were you this year. Go on Google and type in your key terms. Look at who's marketing. Watch your marketing costs if you're paying for pay-per-click marketing. It's a little bit more of a challenge. So where do we win? It's this concept of outbound high targeted marketing where it's hyper local. It's less expensive because it's right bound. Now, the cons here is that the quality of it can be expensive. You're going to probably spend a little bit more time personalizing your message, and it requires a little bit of effort, but it can be more impactful. In a very relationship-driven business, this is where you're going to win because Wall Street will not do these methods. It's door knocking, targeted direct mail, custom audiences for paid ads online, personalized email, giving good phone, and very specific social media outreach. Big business is going to focus on those quadrants in orange. That's where they're going to play. They have more money than they know what to do with. So while they're running Super Bowl ads, small business is going to be focused on, I interviewed Dotloop recently, the Zillow company, and she used the term belly to belly, and I really like that. So it's the face-to-face where us Main Street people do really well. And I hope you have known me over the year to be very passionate and an advocate for our industry. I really believe that small business is just such important to the American economy. And big business, for the most part, does not live, hire, play, give, and invest locally. They're very transaction focused, where Main Street, small business, we live here, we hire here, we play here, we give here, and we invest here. So I'm just really wanting to help you today discover some very interesting opportunity you might not know about. Luckily, hopefully this is triggering some laughter online. This is how I grew up. The only thing that's missing is Andrea Jennings' printout from the MLS in the back of the car. This was literally my view at 5 years old, driving around town. Luckily, data doesn't look like this either. Believe me, working with my father in the early 2000s, this is what I used to do in the garage, microfiche. But data doesn't need to look like this anymore either. So today, I'm really going to hopefully bring some cool stuff your way. There's a little bit of a framework. Hopefully you've bought all the books that you're going to do to motivate you in 2021. And we've been working with thousands of people over the year. And there's a simple framework that we've identified. We call it the DUCA framework. And this is how I'm going to position the rest of the day. Discover. We're going to get you really good at cooking with criteria. Even some of the most experienced people don't know that some of the demographic data, as for instance, is available that can really change your marketing from a general farm to really impact and back into a niche that you really own and love, which is really, really fun. And none of this is list stacking, by the way. We're just creating really good lists right out of the bat. We're going to go to understand, the second part of DUCA framework. It's about refining the message to match your niche. So instead of creating a very general letter, as an example, I can get way more niche, and I'm going to show you exactly what that means. We can know every customer by name. That makes it a lot more personalized and a lot more likely that they're going to engage in whatever kind of marketing that we're doing. And then finally, if I can do that, hopefully I'll inspire you to play a little bit more with automation this year. Chances are you already have the technology stack and the tools that do it. You just need to commit yourself to spending a little bit more time with what you already have. Microsoft alone, the number of innovations that they've come out with within the last year has been pretty incredible. It's just plugging in and learning how to do it. Now, there's a ton of data out there. Data isn't just for Wall Street anymore. It's up to us to get a lot better with it. What's your chocolate though? I can throw as much data in the world at you. The problem is, and the biggest mistake I see is people don't realize that what they bring to the business is the most important piece, and we can back into it. Remember this this video in the 1980s where he's walking down the street with chocolate and she's got the peanut butter and they run into each other and they're like, oh, let's try it. It's the most magical thing on earth. It's when the chocolate and the peanut butter combine. This is really cool. Peanut butter cup. That's where we get the competitive advantage. So what does this look like? Say you're a baby boomer pro. You specialize in estate planning. You love working with 55 plus, and you've got an entire team of referrals, like a CPA, an estate planning attorney, all that kind of stuff. Well, in just Riverside alone, 32,000 boomers own in Riverside, 6,000 own free and clear, 11,000 have owned for over 30 years, 13,000 of them love sports, and 3,000 have their birthday in January. Hopefully you're thinking about every single one of those things, different ways to market to them in a very specific way, whether it be a birthday card or a postcard with your favorite sports team. I don't know. You decide. So off-market real estate. I've had a lot of questions about foreclosures. I've decided to pull the California notice of default, so the pre-foreclosure list for you, just show you in comparison where we're at. The problem is right now, anything that makes the news in the next 3 months when it comes to foreclosures is really things that should have happened in March because of the moratoriums here in California and the nation. You're not going to see anything COVID related until well into summer. So for those of you really planning your distressed route, okay, there could be a little bit of a wave, but we're in a very different scene than we were in 05, 06, 07. People actually had to qualify. And look at how much equity people are sitting on. You're going to get the report from Mark here shortly. If you bought in January, you're sitting on a nice pile of equity right now. It's not called a short sale. It's just called a sale, right? Off-market deals, as far as in the city of Riverside, there was over 900 transactions and over $400 million of transaction that happened behind the scenes that never made the MLS. Now, there's a lot of reasons that happened between iBuyers, real estate investors, probate, you name it. But it's It's how do we get in the way of that as realtors and do a better job of identifying those so we get a piece of that pie.
Aaron,
Yes, sir.
real quickly, I think the data I sent over to you yesterday, there was 900 off market. There was about 3,500 home sales in Riverside last year. Is that about right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was strictly just focusing on the off market just to.
Sure. I just want to give a perspective. So about 900 out of basically 4,600 were off market.
Yeah. And that's honestly, that really surprised me. I did not think that many transactions would happen behind the scenes. So why I care about off market is, of course, I'd like a piece of that $400 million pile, but some of these strategies I want to figure if I can model, let's copy what they do, if I can leverage them in my business, or avoid them altogether. So let's look at iBuyers. I'll fly through some of this because I want to leave a lot more time for questions today. So no secret, Zillow came on really strong early in 2020. And because Open Door is going public, their IPO was late in December. I think it was December. We basically found out that they were losing money. Zillow had already said that they're losing on average $7,000 per transaction, and Open Door isn't making a lot. These are razor thin margins. The game is ancillary. Why can't I say that word? Extra services, mortgage, title, escrow. They're even looking at things like insurance, vertically integrating every transaction. So when a consumer touches them, and I really want you to think about this, it's not just about this one transaction. They could be trying to lock them into an ecosystem for life. So that's really important to understand. Now, I don't want you to cry about it. I don't want you to be scared. I want to show you exactly what they're doing because it's changed. Last year has been really different. So they're after a very specific buy box, and it changes drastically. Don't pay attention to any data that's statewide because it's a complete waste of time. And I'll show you why. So the game for iBuyers is that what appears in public record is actually not the entire story. If you haven't seen one of the offers, there's a lot of credits that go on behind the scenes. So on average, they're taking a 7 to 15% credit on the buyer side in a transaction. So what shows up there isn't the entire story. They're spending millions in advertising in California. It's pretty incredible. They're losing money, and apparently they're going to be able to do it for the foreseeable future. They're backed by a lot of money right now. Here's what the volume looks like in California. Sorry, I backed this down into Riverside and San Bernardino for you guys. I want you to see exactly what they're doing. Look at the volume change. When I told you about this last year, they were really coming on strong. Zillow was going bonkers in the market, really putting on the pressure. But look what happened during COVID. They have not come back. Now, I think they're going to. I think the as-is cash model is going to be a thing. Realogy just announced late last year their sort of as-is cash buy model that they're going to roll out to all of their brands. Keller Williams has been threatening for over a year. I have yet to have a Keller Williams agent tell me that they've had access to that. But I think it's coming. But you've always had access to that. You've got local real estate investors that will do, the cashes. And I know you think investors are crazy, but I really want you to walk through the numbers. When you're looking at a hoarder house, the risk that's involved of fixing up a property from soup to nuts, knowing that there's supply chain disruptions that you have to deal with, skilled labor shortage, it's not easy to be a flipper. And we do not operate under the same margins as some of these Wall Street buyers. And it's important just to understand that. The Inland Empire is by far where they're most active. The Riverside area, Menifee, they're even out towards Palm Springs. They've started to get a little bit busier this year, but I want you to see what they're doing differently is they're barely doing anything. This is an example of one that happened early in 2020, 2005, 3-bed, 2-bath. There was no mention in the listing of even any paint or upgrades at all. I saw one in Palm Springs in summer where the only thing they did was paint, and they painted like 1970s cabinet, and then they put like brushed nickel poles on it and left like the pink tile. I mean, it was hideous. It looks so gross. You guys would clock me as an investor if I did that on a rehab, but they don't have to. Things are going so strong right now. They don't have to do a major rehab, but look at how thin the margin is. They flipped that in a little over 30 days and sold that for $396,000. Now, I just told you what the game was on the buy side. They didn't buy that for $374. There was some credits on the back side. So I just want you to understand how that works. Now, Here's another example a little bit more recently. They bought, I think this was an open door one, if I'm correct, 1986 4.3, 1,800 square feet. Now, this one did get new paint and carpet, but you know as well as I do, doesn't look like they changed out anything on the tile, the cabinets. They did no major rehabs. And that 1980s ceiling light is just giving me life right now. Gotta love those rounded, rounded quarters. God, love the 80s. They must have changed out the sink though. I don't see shiny brass. So anyway, I do want you to pay attention to that margin. So they bought that for around 200,000 and they flipped it 4 months later with very little repairs for 450. I'm hoping that was a mistake somehow, that the numbers were wrong. Every once in a while they hit a home run, but for the most part, this is not what's happening. So they buy easy houses. I'm sure you're very familiar with the UGG brand, the We Buy Ugly Houses brand. iBuyers are really focused on the easy stuff right now. And how that's important for you is when you have a customer with a 3,000 square foot home in 92506, and they're like, well, I've been getting all these, I think I'm going to go with one of the iBuyers. You'd be like, great, you know what? Guess what? Unfortunately, they're not buying a lot in that range right now. They specialize in 2,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms and under, 1970s and greater, under $500,000. This is probably not going to be something they're interested. We can try, but you've just positioned yourself as an expert, knowing exactly what the iBuyers are and are not doing. Now, if you're doing deals in LA, I've seen some of these iBuyers go up to $1 million condos. They're not buying condos in the Riverside area for the most part. So it changes drastically. And if you know that, you look amazing. So another category off market is, of course, the flippers in the market. So it, of course, no surprise, it's going to happen mainly in the Riverside. Inland Empire is just great numbers. It makes a lot of sense. And for real estate investors, you've got a lot of demand for this category. I have real estate investors reporting they've been shocked at some of the extra money that they've made just because demand has been so high. They've got a vacant property that's fixed up. It's been doing great. So what they're interested in is, lo and behold, something very similar. So where the iBuyers are at 2,000 square feet, it looks like investors are really focused on the 1,800, 3.2, single family. You can actually see a little bit more details on the square footage and the estimated price range. Look at that FHA limit. It makes a lot of sense to me. That's definitely what we see in the hard money loan business. So that's your formula. So, if you are working a neighborhood and you're seeing some boarded up houses and you don't have real estate investors in your back pocket, $400 million in the background, and you're not playing in the space. And I want you to pay attention to that, because investors can sometimes do 10 to 60 deals a year. If you have them as part of your team, you might have a whole nother line of business that you're not even paying attention to, which I'd love for you to pay more attention to this year. So let's get nerdy. I'm going to pull more examples of chocolate and peanut butter and hopefully get you excited. I'm going to call this a drive-by pro. You're with a client in a car, you're driving through and they're like, you know what? I really like that style. You're like, okay, let's pull over. Let's take a look. Let's see what I can do. So you get on the phone. You're like, yep, let me call them. You can know all these people by name. A lot of times you don't have to do a skip trace. You don't have to go in your office. The technology is there for you just to call and impress the socks off whoever's in the back of your car. It's fun. Let's look at a hyperlocal pro who's really good at networking. So let's say you're really involved in the community and you really want to start targeting professors that are coming into town from out of state to work at UCR. And this is a real example that I see come up, and maybe you didn't know that this is possible. So let's say in a post-COVID world, you're at a birthday party and you learn that Dr. Samantha Stein is moving from Ithaca, New York to be a new dean of a college at UCR. You immediately go home and you look her up in Ithaca and you find out she owns, her and her husband own a 4.2, 2,000 square feet, and she's likely moving $200,000 worth of equity. So, okay, UCR, what kind of inventory is available over there that sort of fits that buy box, if you will? So the Riverside University area, which I grew up on Spruce Street, by the way, so I know it fairly well, attended Highland Elementary. Let's look at 1,800 to 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathroom, and under the FHA limit roughly. So 81 homes fit that buy box that I can start. Instead of marketing to 1,600 in that area, I could be talking to 81 people and do something like, let's see, we've got mostly owner occupant, The average age I was really surprised to see is over 67 years old. What concerns me a little bit if I was a realtor is that there's not a ton of transactions in that market. They're holding on a little bit longer than I would like, meaning that I could provide a real value as a realtor by getting ahead of it. So let's say I connect with her online saying, hey, Samantha, hey, I was at a party. I found out you're coming to town. Congratulations on the new job. I'm going to send you a letter or an email. And in the email, you say, hey, congrats on the new job. I lived in New York. This is me, by the way. I lived in New York. This is how I would respond to try to make a connection. I'm reaching out as I specialize in the market around the university helping educators, and the market has been on fire. I know you want to start in fall. If you come out, I'd love to show you around. But that 500,000 is a real challenge. But if we start looking now, we might be able to identify some specific sellers that are willing to sell, and we can time this really well for you. Now, as I start marketing in the community to that 81, maybe I really focus on that older age group, the 55 plus. What might marketing to them look like? Hey, I'm a local expert. I specialize in helping educators moving to town to work at UCR. Love UCR, want to help them get into Riverside. Hey, if you know anybody looking to sell during summer, there's a timing issue here. Please let me know. Maybe you could go as far as saying, I will make a $500 donation to your favorite charity if this goes through and you can help me. Oh, and by the way, did you hear about in 2020, California passed some rules to where you can port your tax bases anywhere in the state of California if you're over the age of 55. If I can help you, let me know. You've just done two things. I own some rentals in Riverside. 2 times in my last 6 years of ownership for a condo in 92506 have I ever had a realtor reach out to me and say, I have a client that loves this neighborhood, really wants to live here. If you're ever considering selling, will you please let me know? Twice. That's it. When you do that, you position yourself as somebody who's hustling for your clients and you really want the business. It just really impressive to me. And then this particular scenario, instead of talking to 1,600 people over in the UCR market, I could be potentially winding that down to 38. I can choose which way I decide to connect with them, whether it be social media, direct mail, person to person, who knows. And dynamic lists is something very important that I told you I was going to try to introduce the concept of automation. Let's say I created that dynamic list where anybody over 55, assuming somebody aged into that category, I got a notification. It added to that list of 38 over 55 that I could send that letter to and automate. Really specific. That's not a list that anybody else owns. It's because you own that neighborhood, you own the market. It's a niche specific to you. Let's talk about off-market and the investor side. So let's say you really like working with absentee. You really understand the game, and you're very creative. You understand the real estate investor and their needs. I want to find landlords that have 50% of equity who might be tired of the 3 T's, tenants, toilets, and trash. Now, in the city of Riverside, there's over 90,000 single-family residences, 14,000 are absentee, 11 haven't been owned since 2013. Why would I care? Are they sitting on a ton of equity? Probably. Yeah. And another thing that you can do is whittle this down by size of property. And this comes into play in a unique way that I hope you know about. Anyway, so 34,000 where the lots are over 10,000 square feet. If I look at the data behind that, the average age, 65, owner occupant mainly, turnover every 18 years. So they're sitting on these landlords are sitting on these for a while. But look at that, 450 grand. That's the magic spot that I really like. There's a lot of demand there right now. And we could look at even some narrower niches, owned since 75. Why would I care about that? Have they taken all their depreciation tax benefits from the property? Probably. Over 1,600 properties are owned free and clear. Almost 2,000 are owned by multiple owners or corporations, and 265 are out of state. You know as well as I do, California is a crazy state. If they're not paying attention to all the eviction moratoriums, like they could be having like real distress right now and not know what to do. Real quick, 211, the United Way that runs 211 for Riverside County, I happen to be the board chair. Did you know that they got millions of dollars of CARES Act money, and that there was a landlord that got a lot of money to backfill via a grant tenants that had been behind on rent? If you do not know the 211 hotline, you are missing out, and you could be a major resource to landlords that are out of the area that don't even know that exists. Every 211 is run by a different entity in different counties. Ours is just really cool. So let's say I'm driving in my neck of the woods. I spot an absentee. I find out who owns it. And I decide to connect with them. Hey, dear investors, here's a picture. Riverside is starting to get real aggressive with ticketing. They're trying to make some extra money to plug some budget gaps. Here's a card of my landscaper, super reliable and very reasonable. Hey, if you're tired of owning this stuff, I have real estate investors that are constantly looking for real estate investment deals. They can be very, very creative, and they don't mind taking over the tenant issues if you have any tenants that are, having issues paying. Maybe they'd be willing to carry financing. You never know. Maybe they want the income. They just don't want to deal with the tenants anymore. One of the reasons I pulled the specific list down to the sizes a lot is because of accessory dwelling units. Some investors are specifically targeting value add because it is so competitive and it's hard to buy deals. If you don't buy it, maybe you can create it via adding square footage or accessory dwelling units. If ADUs are not on your radar yet, hopefully they will be this year. The state has mandated this. I still get questions even by some of our electeds like, oh, the neighbors hate it. Too bad. You have zero control. There was a rule passed in September that even HOAs cannot stop these. The game that HOAs were playing for converting like garages was that they're like, oh, hey, there's a 25% limit on rentals allowed in the HOA. The state kiboshed it. So I bet you anything, go to your local HOA, sit down and be like, I'm thinking about turning my garage into a junior accessory dwelling unit, and see the look on their face when they find out that they have zero control over you doing that. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to skip through some of this, but I want you to see 3,400 opportunities where you've got a 10,000 square foot lot where a detached accessory dwelling unit converting the garage. Those are opportunities that when you position yourself as a hyper-local pro and you understand the building process and can get in there and help some out-of-state investors create some extra cash flow, maybe help some of your senior clients be like, you know what, I don't see if you want to stay here, maybe something that you haven't thought about is doing this. We can build a really great ADU for you in the back and you can rent out the front. And I could be your landlord. I would be happy to do that for you. All right. One of the things you do have to be aware of is appraisals and lending are still a problem with this. There are not enough comparable sales. If you have a developer friend that loves this kind of stuff, this will blow their mind. And I don't have the data for this, but I've worked with some local media on this specific data poll recently, where lots were zoned R3, but on site is a single family home. Guess where a lot of those opportunities are in the city of Riverside? Downtown. What is downtown? The entirety of downtown is an opportunity zone. I think the most exciting thing about opportunity zones, at least in the state of California, because you don't get the tax benefits that they're giving you at the national level, you have to pay your taxes. But if you want to go from Tesla stocks, Bitcoin, or Apple stock into real estate, you can, which is really cool and save a lot in taxes. It's a very long-term play, but if you have not sort of dabbled in the opportunity zones, the entirety of downtown Riverside is just that. Now, some automation ideas for you this year. This is super specific, very nerdy, I'm sorry, but maybe you have a virtual assistant that you say, you know what, accessory dwelling units work best when I'm not a cram lord, when I really help owners or real estate investors understand the way you're going to get the best value out of this if you really create a nice quality of life for both sides of the tenants. Where does that work great? Downtown Riverside. You've got opportunity zones, but you've also got alleyways. You can convert the garage in the alleyway to an accessory dwelling unit, and the people in the front, they don't even have to bother each other. Technically, you could probably just set up a fence right down the middle of the property and make it really great quality of living and really increase rents. So I have a virtual assistant go through and use a map view, putting the properties that really would work perfectly for this, and I could just market to those guys. I could push it into my CRM system, do text message campaigns, email them, call them directly saying, hey, if you're thinking I might have some ideas for you, I don't know. Now, brokers, if you've got teams, I love referring people that are experts in their space. And in my mind, in Riverside, if you were to come to me and ask for somebody who specializes in multi-million-dollar homes or specialty homes, historic homes, I definitely have realtors that own that space for me, where I know if I refer them, they're just rock stars. There's a lot of different ways to do this business. And I just encourage you to play with the data and in your teams, find out how to consistently give them those leads where they're going to succeed faster in 2021. Generic farming needs to be out. There's no reason that we need to be doing that anymore. Please play with integrations. There are so many with Zapier. There's over 2,000 integrations that you might not even know work together to save you a lot of time, and time is money in 2021. So I want you to forget about vanilla and really focus on your chocolate this year, because if you tell me what your niche is, I'll back it with data. And if you ever get lost, you can always email me. I love this stuff. Use public records to do what Wall Street won't do. Get hyper local, hyper niche, and use this framework to really plug in and learn how to scale on your own. Introduce automation back into the niche and get really, really good at it. If you have a data question, you can always send it to me. And if you do a 3-day trial with Property Radar, I actually build the list for you and send it to you. It's pretty fun. So with that, I think I did pretty good on time, and hopefully I have some time for questions for you.
You did great, Aaron. Let me ask a quick question. If you do want to ask questions of Aaron, hop on the chat element on the Zoom button and type up your question, and we will go from there. But let me start off and ask this question. Obviously, Property Radar is a fee service, and they have great content. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the different options, because you focused on data as a self-described data geek. So there's Property Radar. What are other sources where they can get data, whether it's free or fee services? Do you have any suggestions?
Data, I mean, I hope you guys know how spoiled we are in California. The California Association of Realtors and our local associations provide such rich amount of data. And I can promise you, being in Florida for several years, that is not the case in other states. So first and foremost, we have access to some of the best research and data just being a part of NAR and CAR and of IVAR. So kudos to you guys. There's dumpster diving on the internet. You are always going to be able to find marketing opportunities on Google and Facebook, lookalike audiences. Some of those have really come into, they've gotten a lot of critiques. I think there was an email that leaked with Facebook saying that they admitted how terrible their marketing was there. I have not had good luck ever, Facebook marketing. And you've probably experienced, if you've been in Facebook for a long time, it's tricky. Facebook is for family and friends. And so you're trying to market in a space that's people use it in a very specific manner. So you just have to be really careful, but the data is there.
Good. Any other questions for Aaron at this time?
If anybody works with Keller Williams, I would love to know if you've found out if when you're going to get access, or one of the Realogy brands, Coldwell Banker, Home and Gardens, please let me know. If you guys get access to these major brands' iBuying programs or their answer to the as-is cash buy, I would love to know about it.
Making the transition from the Norris Group over to Property Radar, what has been something you've learned that may have surprised you as you made the kind of change I mean, you're doing a lot of the same things, but anything new or different that's changed for you?
You know what, blowing up my brain to think about national, I'm obviously most comfortable in California. So it's just a challenge, and all the media that I get to work with, pulling all the different stories that they're working on. Like, so today, pulling the data, I was really surprised to see how much off-market activity was happening locally. And I was really excited pulling these examples of ways to get in the way of that. So I'm still at the Norris Group, way far in the background. I'm actually right here at the Norris Group. I don't have to move to Truckee. It's interesting. One of the things that I can't wait to watch to see if it continues, one bullet point, the work from home thing is really important for me, because having lived part-time in downtown LA, spending $2,300 a month to rent a space because buying didn't make sense 2 years ago down there. That translates very beautifully to the Inland Empire, to a $500,000 home. If the majority of downtown businesses allow you to work remote, think of what that means to home ownership in the Inland Empire. Think of what that means for quality of life if I'm saving 3 hours a day not having to drive back and forth. Even if my work says, you know what, I need you to drive in at least 2 times a day. Will consumers be willing to make that drive or take the train and deal with the hassle twice a week to be able to own something with more space and a backyard and a quality of life, to have the urban experience, but to live in a city like Riverside or Rancho Cucamonga, Temecula, the Coachella, Palm Springs. I've talked to realtors in San Diego, in San Diego and Palm Springs, who are dealing with people that are doing this play from the Bay Area. They're going from a $1.7 million median price to an $800,000 median price. that saves a lot of money. You can buy quite a few plane tickets back and forth from San Diego to San Francisco. So it's going to be interesting to see if the remote work becomes a thing, stays that way. And California might not lose as many people to other states. They just might be moving out of places like San Francisco and move to places like Palm Springs or Temecula, San Diego.
Right. Two questions. One comes from Brent Beachstole, who's on the call, and he's asking about the slow start in construction. Maybe you can take a minute and talk a little bit about that. And then also, you just kind of touched on it, this idea that, you know, everybody's leaving California, and all of us have our experiences, and some of it's anecdotal, some of it's legitimate from a number standpoint, but maybe talk about that as well. So we'll start off with the construction side.
Sure. Construction, part of the problem is that we haven't been creating lots. So I would agree, it's been slower. I watched several construction projects. It's been part of the conversation for years too. Affordable housing. Oh, I hate this conversation because it's really frustrating to me, just knowing how political it gets, and politicians understand what we need. The most creative thing I've seen is accessory dwelling units as an answer to that. I sat on the housing coalition for the city of Riverside, and, you know, we're debating these projects that are 4 houses at the Grove, affordable housing. It's amazing. It's fantastic. We have 18,000 that we have to build affordable housing units as part of our RENA goals. And the state may eventually crack down and say, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to not give you as much CDBG funding. Brent, you and I serve on a lot of nonprofits. We know how important that CDBG funding is. So we as an industry have to start pushing back a little bit more with data. Builders have not been able to build profitably out here in the affordable housing space. It's crazy. So yes, we have not been building enough, taking raw land to buildable lots. Builders have taken a very different approach to the cycle as well. Another reason why I don't think we're going to see huge foreclosures. They're not building entire tracts and then releasing them and having people compete. They're building to suit. So yeah.
And then the issue of this idea that's kind of out there that, you know, everybody's leaving California. What are the numbers like?
I don't think so. Actually, United Van Lines and U-Haul just came out. Yes, we don't have as many people moving to California. So net migration is down. We are losing people. We've been helping some investors sort of work on their portfolios here. So some of them bought in 2009 houses in the Inland Empire for 50, 60 grand. Has it done its job? Yeah. So some landlords are like, I'm uncomfortable because of some of the situations that California are in, are being too aggressive, not protecting landlords' rights. So I'm going to diversify out of the state a little bit. I'm uncomfortable holding everything here. And I'm talking about investors that have over 100 rentals, many of them in the Inland Empire. They're just uncomfortable. So yes, some people are going to leave the state. Some people are going to retire out of state for cost of living. My father just moved to Florida, but let's be honest, California is a great state. I have some people that are just like, have fun. It's less competition for me. And we are still the #1 immigration state in the United States. So we still gain the #1 spot for people who want to live here that are coming from other countries.
Right. On the issue of population, just to let you know, obviously you see a lot of it, the numbers of people leaving. But if you look historically, that is nothing new, #1. #2, from a comparative standpoint, we have 40 million people in California. So the idea that with 100 or 150,000 people leaving the state of California is still a relatively small number from a percentage standpoint. Fact is, Texas was right behind California as far as people leaving a state. So California was #1 with the largest number of people leaving. Texas, which everybody thinks everybody's moving to, was #2 with people leaving Texas to other states. One of the questions that came through was, what are the metrics you look at when you're making an investment in a property? And I'm sure there's lots of them. Maybe you can boil it down to just a few.
It's really personal. It's so personal. I've learned that I'm a landlord and I'm not a flipper. And my thing has been to 1031 exchange into brand new houses, because I can't tell you how done I am with surprises. Exploding water heaters, half flooded houses, roots and pipes. And this is very personal to me. So I really like owning brand new houses. It works great for me. I think of very safe when you're looking at flippers. A formula just really simple is 80% of after repair value minus repairs. I think some investors can get a little bit more aggressive than that, but when you're dealing with heavy fixers, I don't think that's out of the ballpark. Light fixes, that's what the iBuyers are really going to focus on. they can handle the margins because they have those other side businesses, but locals that really have to go through that journey, you have to get a discount. You're not going to do it for free. It's not fun. So, and they can't expect a 10% increase in price by the time that they're done. So that's not smart.
Yeah, yeah. So are there any other questions for Aaron? He's been good enough to spend some time with us. If there's any last questions, please send them in. I don't see anything coming through on the chat line for additional questions. So I will say this, Aaron, thank you so much for participating today, for sharing all this information. This particular interview and presentation from Aaron will be on IVAR's website by Friday. So if anybody wants to rewatch it or pull some information from it, it will be available to the members. And Aaron, if people want to get data and information, is it okay if we put your contact information on our website with your presentation so they can contact you directly?
Of course. Yeah. It's just Aaron@propertyradar.com. If you get lost or there's a community.propertyradar.com, you can always ask questions. And there's some really smart people who have been in the business a long time in the investing space too, that sometimes chimes in. So glad to help whenever I could.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aaron. Just to let you know, our next meeting in February, we will have a builder and Phil Berman, past president of the Baldy View Building Industry Association. So we'll be talking a little bit more about building and kind of what's holding up on the construction side. So with that, I want to thank everybody for participating today. Great job, Aaron. Thank you for being here and look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you.